Hello guys, I wanted to talk with you today about an interesting concept that came to me that isn't directly tied to a news story, but it did have me thinking, what really is the difference between mass media or the media in general and institutions of education or institutions as a nation or a religion, uh, such as the Catholic Church or Christianity at large, or in a nation like the United States. What really is the difference between an institution and a media entity? And I devised a few questions that I think can kind of sort that out, because I think it's important to realize that they're both, well, I'll get into what they have in common and what they don't. So what I wanted to touch on is, do they, okay, so one question I would ask is, do they direct or do they endorse produced content? How I would define media is, they are a distributor of produced content. This content can come in a variety of forms, endless forms, but this produced content should be some kind of narrated content, but I would hesitate to go that far even. So we're talking media as a distributor of produced content. So do they direct or endorse produced content? The government of the United States, we fund PBS. So yes, the United States does endorse produced content. I would hesitate to say they direct it, though. PBS is its own entity, although it is state funded. It is also publicly funded. You've got like EWTN is a Catholic radio or a Catholic TV station, and I don't know to what extent the church funds or endorses it, but they certainly, both of these entities, whether it's PBS or EWTN, they are clearly media, but they do endorse the status quo to one extent or the other of the institution that they are based around. So PBS generally does they report on the status quo. They don't challenge the status quo of the institution of the United States. EWTN does not do that either in relation to the Catholic Church. So, and here, okay, that's my first question. Do they do that? So they both endorse content clearly, but I would hesitate to say that they direct content. So if the church is out there actually producing content, directing it themselves, that's different. But endorsing it is more passive. So another thing I would look at is, do they have an emphasis on influence or shaping public perception? Now this is something that they share, whether it's mass media or whether it's an institution. So yes, influence and social and shaping public perception are always part of that. You have to have a society or to have a community of churchgoers, there has to be influence is clearly part of it. You influence their daily rituals, you influence their work ethic, you influence their morals, you influence all sorts of things, their relationships, the way that they spend their free time, all kinds of things. So that's what institutions do to perfection. I mean, well, not to perfection, but surely that's what makes them an institution, and because the amount of control that they have, but the media, of course, does it too. Their emphasis is on influence. There's not one media organization. There's not one media personality that isn't trying to shape your influence influence you in some kind of way. We're all influencing. We're all trying to influence. I'm trying to influence you right now. So yeah, they share that. That's the common ground. But there's not a lot of common ground otherwise. So that's really what they share, is that emphasis on influence and shaping public perception. But an institution doesn't have to work so hard at it. They have it. They've had it for centuries, maybe millennia. So, are they a public? Question number 3: are they a private entity or a public corporation? So, a private entity is one where there is no financial compromise from the outside. So you're not ran by corporate donations, at least not at face value. So a private entity, maybe they do take money from companies, but like our government is a private entity. I mean, they're supposed to be a representative democracy, but they're corrupt and take money from corporations. So, yeah, they are a private entity, but they are, it's a corrupted entity. And the church, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where they get their money. Of course, they get it from their parishioners. I don't know if they get it from anywhere else. But the one thing I know for sure is that if Pope Francis has a couple of bad weeks and has a scandal, one thing I know is that there is no board of shareholders who can vote to kick him out and replace him, and this board can't just put in a new pope. It doesn't work that way. There's a group of cardinals that get together and decide who's pope. It's not even the parishioners or the vast community of Christians have any influence. Absolutely not. It's a private, very close entity. And just like, and to an extent, well, that's kind of what that would be, an institution, and the government is like that as well, to a lesser extent though, based on the corruption. A corporation is completely profit driven and beholden to shareholders, and leadership and messaging can change at the drop of a hat. So big difference there between institutions and media. Now, effectiveness. That's something that's interesting too. Have these institutions been effective? Clearly, the Catholic Church has been effective for thousands of years. They've only been waning in influence over the last few centuries, largely by industrialization, largely by influence from media. So that gets into the relationship with mass media between these institutions, because it becomes very clear when you observe it, when you think about it, that mass media is coming for these institutions, that mass media and these institutions are at constant conflict, they're at constant war. And it's not a coincidence that at the age of the bloom of mass media, really over the last 150 years, and with the dawn of advertising and the dawn of the corporation, but the dawn of mass media being the influencing competitor, it doesn't seem like it's a coincidence that aligns with the time frame of when people started to become less religious, generally more cynical, less patriotic. I mean, with the rise of cable news, the rise of social media, these are institution destabilizing devices. This is technology that is designed to destabilize. By its very nature, it destabilizes institutions. So yes, they are at constant conflict, and the Arab Spring comes to example when it comes to this war between institutions and mass media. So yes, they are both after the same thing. They both want influence. They want to shape public perception, but the mass media is having to play catch up over hundreds or even thousands of years, and they are driven by technology, and they are driven by private interests and money but one last thing that's worth addressing is, can media become an institution? Can a produced narrated content become an institution? And the answer is clearly yes, absolutely. The Bible was nothing more than a handful of stories written from the apostles. but it became the institution of a billion people and all of Western civilization. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, that was produced narrated content that became the institution of the United States of America. So clearly, yes, any mass media, any form of, well, any narrated produced content can become an institution. That you need a distributing arm behind it, such as mass media. So there is a bit of differentiation between narrated produced content and a distributor that spreads it, such as the mass media. So yeah, these are some interesting concepts and fascinating stuff here. So I'll probably be touching on it again in the future, because we need to remember that the institutions and the mass media are very different animals, and they're at conflict now and existential threats to each other now more than ever. Thank you, guys.